I know it's hard to believe, but August is almost over. We are getting into the final quarter of the year. Now is the time for you to get your financial shit together. Get it together for the end of this year and get it together for the beginning of next year so that you don't even have to think about it through 2023. Do this by hiring Molly Morris at m3virtualaccounting.com. I hired her last year and I truly wish I had done it years ago. Have a free consultation and see if she can help you at m3virtualaccounting.com. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Unspoiled, covering Ted Lasso, Season 1, Episode 9, aptly named All Apologies. In this episode, Rebecca, after some wild body undulations in her office that made me deeply uncomfortable, finally comes clean to Ted. Welcome to Unspoiled. Rochelle was taking a sip while I did that intro, and I think I nearly killed her. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn. So Rebecca pop locking you at the desk, super uncomfortable, right?
That shit was, oh God, it was so awful. I hated it so much.
Top of the pops.
That is my favorite shit, though. Like, people acting out of character is always going to be something that is just a favorite of mine. It's like that Parks and Rec episode where Ron Swanson gets really drunk and they have him like with somebody else's weird hat pinned to his head and his eyes closed as he dances because he got super drunk, which he like never does. That's the energy that she was giving me, except instead of alcohol, it was anxiety, which I really do understand.
Yeah, anxiety and guilt driving her to be overly animated in an inappropriate way.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna start at the beginning because I don't even know where. Yeah. We're gonna do that thing that we always do.
Yeah. Overall, before we get into the nitty gritty, quickly, your overall sort of feelings about the episode. It was a lot of big stuff finally happened. Were you satisfied?
Yes, I was really relieved as well, because I was just, there were multiple moments where she's like almost not going to do it. And I was just like, oh man, if she just doesn't, I mean, she has to, but what if she doesn't,
Yeah.
Because the show is like just different enough that they could just do something where she doesn't do what I expect,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't usually, what it has been is they don't do what you expect because you were expecting something bad and they're actually being somewhat positive.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought she probably would, but then I was like, but maybe they're going to throw a wrench in the works and be like, well, we gave you a lot of positives, but what if we fuck that up?
Yeah.
And I was also really worried when Rupert shows up because it seems like he can really push her into doing a shitty thing like nothing else can. And I thought maybe she would let that be like the excuse for her.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it seems to motivate her in the opposite direction. So
this is when we have so much goodwill for Rebecca throughout the season, despite, and I maintain, she's sort of villainous. Even though a lot of people disagree with me.
I will not hear it.
But this episode is when we find out whether or not that goodwill we've been kind of holding on for her is going to be worth it, or is she going to kind of betray that and make us all feel like, well, shit, we were fucking rooting for you and this is what you do, So, all right, let's get into
Erica
it.
Yelling antagonist in the chat. Seconded. Yes. All right. So we start off with Roy poking his head hedgehog-like. No, not hedgehog. What's the thing that we check on for if it's going to be a long winter or summer?
Groundhog.
That's the one. Poking his head up like a little groundhog out of what turns out to be a giant garbage bin full of ice and water.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were going to back up and it was going to be like a sports bath. Something like official. Not so. He went and found a bin, emptied it out, hosed it out, filled it with ice, filled it with water, and just fucking stepped into it. I really do want to know how he gets in and out, though, because there's no like step ladder next to it.
It's probably a whole thing, which I'm a little sad that we don't get to see. I love that he has just put himself in the trash, too. It's just like, how are you feeling about yourself, sir? Like garbage, like literal garbage.
You know what I'm going to imagine is that he has such power on his like jumps that he can literally vertically jump, heel kick to his butt, and land in the garbage can of water, and just. So that's what I'm going to pretend is happening here.
That is way less sexy than I imagined it.
There is nothing sexy about being in a garbage can full of ice water.
I may beg to differ.
Listen, ma'am, you don't want to see his genitalia after this little excursion. That is going to be
I'd like to see
like
it before the excursion.
That's what I'm saying. It's not sexy. You before, long after a hot shower. Now, no, George Costanza. So we find out that he has been playing very badly, and it's such a shame because he had like a comeback after that pep talk with Nate and really seemed to knock it out of the park. And then apparently it was sort of a one-day hype thing and he hasn't been able to get it back together since then.
Yeah.
And it's essentially out of his hands because it's aging.
Exactly. There's a quick little like fun little thing, if I'm not mistaken, this episode where Danny Rojas is on the treadmill behind Roy singing in Spanish. He's singing the theme song to the show, but in Spanish.
Nice. I didn't even pay attention to what he was singing. Just like the fact that he could sing at top volume while running full out on a treadmill. I was just like, disgusting. Yeah. Stop.
I also like that bit of it too, though, because Roy is just sort of sinking down. And I don't think it's supposed to necessarily be a thing, but I kind of took it like Roy is aging out, you know, he's on like sort of the slide down of his career. And there's this young kid so full of energy that he 100%. Can run full speed, you know, belting out. And Roy is just like, oh, for fuck's sake.
He stayed after and was doing drills all by himself. That's the part that when he says, what an asshole, I was like, a little bit. I understand that it's genuine energy that he needs to burn off like a 3-year-old, but there is a feeling to me of like, okay, sir. You're just rubbing it in now. Just go home. Like, do this in your yard.
Do this privately, right?
Exactly.
Go get a gym membership someplace where I don't have to watch all this nonsense.
So, as Cindy says, new postcard, there's nothing sexy about being in a trash can full of ice water. All right, putting that into my, I'm highlighting it. I don't know how much that'll hold up, but I haven't ordered the postcards for this month yet because I have been lied to several times by Moo, who keeps promising a 20% off sale, and that hasn't come yet. And I was waiting for it because I can save quite a lot, but they are lying to me. So I'm going to have to just place that order tomorrow.
As soon as you place it, you'll get another fucking email promising you 20% off.
Swear to God, you guys. And like with enough people getting the $10 postcard now, that shit is like $200.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a lot. So, and that's before stamps. That's before all that other goodies.
Good God.
But I got this. Nobody cares. I'm so sorry, everybody, but I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to say it. I got these bins with individual little 5x7, like almost looks like pencil cases inside. And they fit exactly like a 1-inch stack of postcards in each one.
Oh.
So I've been able to ditch, because I had probably like 60 pounds in a box of just old postcards, and finally got to organize them, and it's just so great. It's so
just a
nice.
Jam, isn't it?
Oh, it's so good. So All right. He is doing this. Ted comes in and is all upbeat, has his back 100%. You're going to come back from this. You had a bad day. Everybody has a bad day. And then we have Danny come in behind him. Ted gets up and takes off. And that's the end of the cold open. And we go to our credits. And then we start off with him. He is meeting Rebecca at like he's in the locker room, but she's getting her photo taken for this like magazine.
Yeah, she's doing a spread for like women leaders in sports, whatever. So she's getting photographed in the locker room, which is not a place she's normally spending a lot of time at.
Yeah.
She's very rarely down there at all. And Ted walks in while she's doing that and gives her a little, hey, look at you.
Biscuit
Kate
box.
Moss better watch out. Which is really funny because Kate Moss is
over.
Right? Like
Canceled.
that was like that canceled or just over?
I feel like when you're a model, that's the same thing. There are a few jobs where that's it. And I feel like
so funny.
That's one.
Like you say canceled, I'm like, oh shit, what did she do? But you just mean like she's got old. She's not like a thing anymore.
Yeah,
it's a
we don't
really
talk about her.
Dated reference to call like a woman like, oh, watch out, Kate Moss. But
Cindy Crawford. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Oh my God. Kids today don't even remember when that was a thing.
I know. I was watching Clueless a few months ago and she said something about how I want to be 5'10" like Cindy Crawford. And I was like, wow, right. That was a whole, yeah. I remember 2 guys at my school had, what was her name? Kathleen Irish?
Kathy Ireland.
Kathy Ireland. Yes. They had her picture on the inside of their lockers, which I found so funny because she's just like, I don't know, like the Martha Stewart of models.
She really kind of was. And then like she did the whole thing. She had like a huge brand that like used to get sold at Walmart, I think. Or maybe it was Kmart.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mid to late 90s was like this, like the supermodel era in a way that had never really been before or since, if you ask me. It was a wild time.
Yeah. That was a prime eating disorder, was fertile soil for that. That was the heroin chic look.
Yeah, it's weird. Like when I think of it, I think of like Naomi Campbell. And the rest of them of her time, but I think of Naomi Campbell because she's a fucking goddess, even though she's like apparently a terrible person.
She is a demon, but she is so beautiful that it's like,
oh my God, but anyway,
court.
yes, she is. So yeah, and he gives her. They have this really wonderful little back and forth about teenage girls in this moment. That I thought to myself, oh, that's when you have women in the writer's room. Like, can a man make that joke? Would a man even know that?
They talk about teenage girls here, and then there's the little girls later on that I think
her and Keely
says.
Yeah, because Keely picks up on the same theme like later in the episode.
And it is really fun. I think there's been a lot of memes lately about how girls between like the ages of 9 and 13 are in their weird phase where all the books they read are like stories about necromancy, and they have like pet giant insects in the yard that they take care of. And there's just like a kind of vibe around them of like, you might be planning to murder me. And I was like, oh yeah. I do feel like I kind of went through.
Yeah.
Mine was like way more cute, scary than like scary. I'm sure other people have gotten a lot more hardcore than I would. I was a sensitive child and I couldn't handle that. But within my realm, yeah.
I missed out on that a little bit just because I had like,
upheaval
shit going on. A lot of upheaval. But I feel like had I been given room to explore that part of myself at that age, I'd have been so weird because I'm already
100%.
Weird.
I would have loved to see that for you. What
that
like.
I'd have been making people uncomfortable and not wanting to sleep in the same room with me.
That's what I'm saying. That's it. Yes.
And, yeah, I think I could have. I think it would have been something to see, but alas.
So, yeah, and she's sort of like not taking it too seriously, and he was like, I don't know, you're like setting yourself up to be a role model for a little girl, and that's a pretty big deal. I know that it doesn't sound like a lot, but still. And
I love that moment too, because you're right. She's like kind of blowing, because she's been blowing all of this off. This whole endeavor. She hasn't been seeing it as what it could be. She's been so laser focused on, her agenda. And I love when Ted brings that to her attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really wild how she is being given so many opportunities to just straight up be successful. And to spite somebody else, she's just tanking her own shit. It's just wild. And like, I'm not trying to pretend that I am not irrational about the way I handle things all the time. But seeing from the outside how completely unaware she seems to be of the way she's hurting herself and herself the most, really.
Yep.
Yeah, you're fucking other people over, you're using people, and that all sucks. But like, what's really sad is that you are in complete control of all these situations, and you could be doing something that would like just launch you into the stratosphere if you leveraged it the right way, and you are not. And you think that's going to make him feel bad. What? I just don't, I got my, like, I'm going to tell the truth and I'm going to apologize this episode, but I wanted her to realize how failing isn't going to get back at Rupert.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit here, because I think what's missing is, and I think the show doesn't do a good job of this at the beginning, which is really expressing to us how important the success of this team is to Rupert personally. Not just as an owner, but as a lifelong fan. And I think if you don't have experience being a hardcore fan of a team, though I think it could be like transferred to other things, it doesn't have to be athletics, right?
Sure.
But when you are so deeply invested in the success of this team, that when they fail, it really does hurt. Like, it does hurt. It's not rational,
Yeah, but what he's going to do is like completely weaponize his sadness about that at her and humiliate her with it. It's just giving him ammunition.
Right.
Doing it, and like putting herself in the crosshairs in a way that she already is in the crosshairs anyway. Why are you going to make it so that he can not only kind of focus on you entirely as a scapegoat, I guess, but I hate using that word because that makes it sound like she isn't actually responsible when she would have been.
But he can shift the blame for the failure of the team directly onto her.
Yeah.
And not care. So it's not that people are going to blame Rupert for the team's failing, because Rebecca's going to be 100% responsible for that. She just wants to watch this team he loves get demoted and become a failure, because that's going to hurt him. Maybe not publicly, he can spin it in the press or whatever, but she knows it's going to hurt him on a real emotional level,
I guess. She is so sensitive about the way she's talked about in the media that deciding to do something that will lead to her getting dragged through it even more is wild to me.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a good example of how not clear-sighted she is about this whole fucking plan that she's got, that she's not seeing the thing that you're talking about because she's so fixated on the other part that she imagines, right? She imagines this deep satisfaction of watching him crumple as his team falls.
Yeah.
She's not even thinking about the rest of that shit. Because it's an asinine plan.
It is an asinine plan, indeed. So they have this little talk, and then we have Keely come in as Rebecca is saying, I'll be the one cheering you on. And Keely's like, really? Oh, will you? And can I speak to you for a moment, please, Rebecca? And she basically is like, bitch, what are you doing? I thought I made it very clear what you need to do, and you're standing in there being like all chummy with him while you eat the cookies that he baked you this morning. I don't understand what was like not since why you didn't take it seriously, but I am 100% going to judge you if you don't tell him, because Rebecca tries to be like, well, what happens if he just never finds out and I just stop doing this stuff? And Keely's like, it'll change how I feel about you.
I love that. I love that so much. It's so good. Two things. Keely calls her something. It's like the worst insult I've ever heard.
A limp dick? A limp cock? What is it?
She calls her a floppy cunt. You're being a right floppy cunt.
Oh, it's a floppy cunt. Oh, I missed it. I misheard it. I thought it was floppy cock. Okay.
And it's the worst thing I've ever heard. Like, I never ever want anyone to say that to me. Oh my God.
That reminds me of my mom. She worked at this like salon that they did like facials and waxing and everything. And there was I think she was like Bulgarian woman who did the waxing. And they were like, she was talking about a difficult client, and she said, because the pussy, you see, it's like flop, how you say? And my mom was like, oh God.
Okay, second worst thing I've ever heard.
Remains to be seen. Did she mean floppy? Did she mean flappy?
Whoa,
who knows?
Jesus.
Either way, it is not something we would like.
Good Lord.
Yep.
Eric is mentioning in the chat that there's been about a month since the last episode to this episode, so we have given Rebecca some time, and she has not, owned up to what she's been doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it when Rebecca's like, well, what's the big deal? Keely doesn't do a whole like, oh, well, it's the right thing to do and blah, 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 blah. She's like, it would matter to me. It would change how I see you. Oh, it's so good. It's so good, because that's the kind of motivation that you want, right? That's what you want to see. What drives your
good
character.
Peer pressure.
Yeah, good, right? It's not all about doing drugs in the bathroom.
I'm doing a line of ethics off of the bathroom sink in here.
Off the back of the toilet.
So Nate comes in the middle of this. He does I know women like shoes, but this is ridiculous because they're in like the shoe room, which is the moment, another like a preview of Rebecca being incredibly uncomfortable because she does a whole like, it smells like feet in here. It's so strong that goes on for a very long time.
That she does not want to hear what she knows Keely is about to fucking say to her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Keely
ducks in and is sort of like, the reason I should mention that she ducks in to begin with is to tell Ted that Tom Ford isn't going to go with any of their players for an campaign.
That's right.
And she says they said that maybe if they do an everyman campaign or something satirical, which I was like, ouch. But yeah, so there's almost a sense in that moment that Rebecca is like hoping Keely will just deliver this news and leave. And when Keely makes a point to be like, I need to speak to you, I was like, and also they talk about Higgins not being with them anymore.
Yeah. I want to mention that Keely, when we talked about Keely bringing it back around to like what teenage girls are like or young girls are like, and Keely tells a story about how she didn't get invited to this birthday party, or she's uninvited. So she takes a shit in the girl's locker, I think.
She doesn't even do it because she was uninvited. The uninvite was the result of confessing that she had done it. When Rebecca asks why she did it, she doesn't even fucking remember.
Oh, that's right.
She's just like, I don't know. I was 13 years old. I felt like taking a shit in her locker. Why do I have to even explain this? It's not the important part.
Oh my God, that's right.
But yeah, and then they get over it. That's one of those things about being in high school that's like a blessing and a curse, is that you only have like this limited pool of people to be friends with. So either you move on and like make up after fights, or you just start losing friends and not getting replacement friends. And that can be like a good thing in learning respect and like forgiveness, but also a bad thing in that you let people get away with real shit moves because you don't have anybody to hang out with on Fridays if you guys stop being friends.
Yeah.
So
it's a time to learn boundaries. And, you know, I didn't. Same. I mean, that was a time for it. I didn't. But
same.
Folks in the chat are saying that Keely says floppy cock, and my subtitles confirm that it is floppy cock. I prefer my version. Right. I prefer my version.
Well, I got that amazing anecdote about a Bulgarian waxer from me, so I feel like it was worth it in the end. So yeah, she says that's like, it'll change how I feel about you, and then we cut to Ted having a press conference talking about going out like Willie Nelson on a high. And then Trent Krim, he says Daily Planet, right?
Listen. That's such a ridiculous joke.
Stupid joke.
This late in the show, this late in the season. When I tell you, I fucking cackled. I laughed so hard at that dumbass joke. It was so ridiculous. I was so embarrassed for myself. No one else was in the room. No one else knew how hard I laughed. It just really tickled me.
So, yeah, he gets up and asks basically about Roy and the situation that he is in.
Yeah.
And many of your young players have improved during your tenure. He starts it with a positive, which I was like, I feel like that's a real telling moment, because Trent doesn't feel like the kind of dude who bothers to start off with a positive for most people, probably.
Right. He's trying to like slide into like the sort of uncomfortableness of like, what are we going to do about Roy? Right.
And in the back, we see Nate and Beard looking really pleased that somebody put him on the spot.
Yeah.
But he says that Roy Kent is the backbone of this team. And the two of them give each other a dark look. They are like, oh boy, okay.
Yeah.
Then he does, if you're an introvert, I want y'all to raise your hand. You guys get the next few questions.
Again, I just laughed so hard.
If you were real introverts, you'd have been quiet as a church mouse. Unless you were at Westboro Baptist, those turkeys won't shut up. I will tell you guys, Owen's grandma uses the word turkeys as an insult, and it's one of the best, most effective insults ever. It's so expressive, and I love it so much.
My mother-in-law uses it too. I mean, my mother-in-law also curses a lot and will use a lot worse language. But we have like my nephew is always around, so we're always trying like not to curse in front of him.
Yeah.
And turkeys is like her go-to. Like, you know, she has had it. If she calls somebody a turkey.
When Owen's grandma calls somebody a turkey, I always read it, and I am certain this is what's happening, as if she were allowed to not be the archetype of a proper Christian woman, she would be cussing somebody out right now. But this is her trying to kind of make it into a little joke so that she doesn't fucking lose it.
Yeah.
Which I have never seen her lose it. I've seen her get angry, and it always is surprising because she keeps that on lock so hard. But I'm dying for the day when she just loses it, because people need it.
What is that like? Everybody in my life doesn't keep shit on lock. Everyone except me is just flying off the handle at all times for any fucking reason. What must that be like?
I think her husband flies off the handle so much that she feels the need to be the grounding force. And yeah, it's tiresome.
Well,
so yeah, he's on the receiving end of turkey. That's mostly who it is. Ken.
Well, if we can get Owen's grandma, my mother-in-law, and some random black people involved, maybe we can just bring back jive turkey into like the
Jive
regular
turkeys.
lexicon.
There's a Community episode where they make a video game that they like jump into, and there is a level where they have to fight jive turkeys. And they're turkeys with little afros.
Wait a minute.
The first level is hippies.
Is this the first time of all the Community references you've made over the ages? How is this the first time I'm hearing about jive turkeys with little afros?
I
can't
don't
believe
know.
This hasn't come up before.
It's an episode that's like, it's a pretty tough, like, for such a funny episode, it's also kind of emotional. Which is actually kind of a lot of Community episodes, weirdly. But yeah, it's the guy who played Gus Fring is in that episode.
Oh,
and
that's Giancarlo Esposito.
That's the one. And he is Chevy Chase's illegitimate half brother.
Oh my God.
That his dad had with a black woman whom he will not acknowledge. And also will not acknowledge his son. So his son has shown up to challenge him to complete a video game that Chevy Chase's dad designed. And whoever wins gets to like inherit his fortune or whatever it is.
What?
Yeah.
He had some crazy cameos on that show. We're getting sidetracked, but I finally like watched all the clips with fucking Michael K. Williams, God bless him.
Oh,
and
so
his like running fucking thing on Community is like the math teacher or whatever.
Yes, so good.
So good.
And then Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad is like a regular character in later seasons. Fucking what's his name that was in Nope? Oh my God, the guy who's got the real deep voice, the black man who's he was in not Eternal Sunshine, Requiem for a Dream, and plays a drug dealer in that. Keith
David?
That's the one. Thank you.
Oh,
Keith
I haven't
David.
seen Nope yet. I didn't know he was in that. But
And
I know who Keith David
is so hilarious in this. Oh my, there's a whole episode where he talks about how he has like this really unhealthy addiction to encouraging white people. And I think I sent you like a clip.
Oh my God.
And he says for some reason white people just like being encouraged by a black man, and it's super effective, and he likes seeing how like much confidence it grants them.
Holy shit.
The show, God, when it's good, it's really good. Yeah.
That's really good. All right.
Yeah, sorry guys, sorry. Community probably deserves its own coverage of some kind.
I'm sure somebody out there somewhere is doing it.
Probably.
I'm sure it's fine.
So okay, we then go to the office where these two are confronting him about the reality of the situation. And
they are
dead
standing there. They are super serious. They are like closing the door. Young man, we need to talk to you.
Yeah, this is a real, you're not going to the prom this year.
We found some magazines under your mattress, and we want to have a conversation about it. He's so disappointed that it doesn't end up being improv.
Oh my God. It's really interesting how much his approach to this feels similar to Rebecca. Like he is just like running at the mouth because he's anxious, because he can tell they're upset about something and he just doesn't want to really deal with it.
Yeah.
So he decides to crack wise, as they say.
And this whole episode, this thing about Roy and this sort of tension between him and the other coaches, because they have a really fundamental disagreement about how to handle the team. And it's like the first friction we really see amongst the coaches anyway.
Yeah.
When we have them later on on the pitch, and they both like are walking away from him, ignoring him, giving him the cold shoulder.
That was really something.
Oh, it's so good. But like this moment here when the talk doesn't go well, and you see on even Nate's face, he's like so uncomfortable. He doesn't want to be having this confrontation. It doesn't go well, and he just feels like, like I don't like any of this. I want it when we're all like together and happy. And
yeah. Yeah, Nate does not deal with Discord very well, which, to be fair, most of my listeners don't, and that's why Facebook's just still the one that everybody goes to. That was a little joke for y'all there. But yeah, this is one of the first times that we see anybody kind of getting in Ted's face about his overall outlook being maybe kind of toxic sometimes.
Yeah.
And later Beard gets very aggressive about it because he has had it.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is we know how long they've been working together, and I'm wondering if he has had to have this conversation with him before, or if they've just never really been in a position like this before because of how inexperienced he is with soccer specifically. You know,
I will say, Beer says in the pub, you know, I understood our mission before.
Mm-hmm.
Like those were kids though. So this feels like this might be the first time, because the situation that they're in here in London is so different from where they were. Not just like the sport that they're coaching, but also the level. Like coaching college is, you know, a big deal in the US, you know, even though I think Ted and Beard they were at Wichita, which I think is like not like a Division I school in the way that we think about it.
Okay.
You know, but so Beard is like, that's cool. We were doing a like, it's more important to teach you young men how to be good people, right?
Right.
But now they're coaching professionals,
mm-hmm.
and that's an entirely different thing. And so I feel like this might have been like the first time they had this real difference of opinion about what the goal is. What are we trying to accomplish here?
All right. I would buy that. Yesterday our butts had teeth marks, deep ones, the kind you have to pay for, which results in Nate asking later if he's ever paid for that. And he says, of course not. Been paid.
Fucking Beard is a mystery, wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a vest. Nelson Muntz.
Oh my God. I just realized that he's checking his phone. It says Rebecca, aka Da Boss.
Mm-hmm.
Sir. I finally had to take the emojis off of your name and Owen's name and my mom's name in my phone, because every time I did speech to text and mentioned one of your names, it would include the emojis. No, it's so distracting. And
I get a little top hat and a little yellow heart every time you tell me anything about Owen. I have for years now. I look forward to it. What do you mean you changed it?
I took it off because it was bothering me. If it just would put your name and acknowledge the emojis are not part of anybody's name, although there has to be somebody out there who did that, right? Prince was able to change it to just a symbol, so somebody out there just has to be like poop emoji, and that's their name. Someone.
I am so sad now. I'm not going to get the little yellow heart and top hat. Aww.
I'm going to test this out now because I changed it in the hopes that it would like not do that anymore. But right after changing it, I saw no difference. So, Owen. Yellow heart and top hat. Wow. The speech to text heard yellow heart and top hat, but for some reason only top hat is in all caps and it's one word. Like a brand name or something. I don't know what's going on there, but top hat.
Really distracted because the cat in the Paula Abdul video, I think his name was Top Cat. You know what I'm talking about? The opposite attract video with Paula Abdul and the dancing cat.
I forgot about that.
All right, I don't want to get us in a whole
the 90s
other
was wild.
Yeah, really. Listen, we got a whole podcast coming up.
We got one.
So she texts, so he leaves this like weird thing with Beard and Nate to go see Rebecca, who's asked him to come upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks like a person who is not well. Her eyes are like this big.
She is sitting very straight up. She is just, I'm going to get straight to the point. No faffing around. Just definitely Gonna tell you right away. No procrastinating. I wonder what the etymology of that word is. Obviously, very good, but crast. It is really something. This is like my brain. It's almost like monologuing my internal monologue out loud, but in a way that's a lot more frenetic. I feel like, yeah, my mind's doing this, but it's not quite as quick and harried. It's more, procrastinate. Good. Crast? What's crast? And it's just drawn out like this. And in the background, bass.
I loved her performance in this scene, and it was also fun to get to see her do this because we haven't really seen Hannah like have to behave this way. She's been so kind of like, you know, uptight and closed and miserable, low key, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And to get to see her have this sort of weird energy, really uncomfortable, uncertain, you know, just like
that Top of the Pops is really that line delivery. It's like the words are forcing their way out from inside her, and she just doesn't really have control over it at all.
It's a lot of, I mean, I want to say it's a lot of fun to watch this moment. It's also like really like kind of disturbing and weird because it's supposed to be, but as like appreciating her performance, it's a lot of fun.
So she's finally like in this rush ends with, can we do this later?
Oh yeah.
And he says, yeah, sure, no problem, I'll just hit the rewind button. And he literally goes backwards out of the room. It is really quite a lot. He even knocks on the way out, like the whole thing.
It's pretty good. Cloak in the chat says that Rebecca has turned into Ted in this moment. What do you think about that?
I don't agree with that. Ted doesn't feel frenetic. He feels genuinely to be thinking these things in a way that's just how his brain works, and he shares it because it's just on his mind, and he feels like, why shouldn't I ask this person their opinion on the formation of the word procrastinate and its etymology? Whereas she would never say this stuff out loud, but anything to create distance between her and what she's trying to avoid. It's an avoidance tactic for her, and for him it's an engagement tactic.
Right.
I guess
that's
is
very
really
interesting. Erica said earlier in the chat that Sassy told Keely that the real Rebecca was actually very silly. This moment, I don't know if this is tying into that bit of Rebecca that Sassy's talking about, because this moment is so founded on the fact that Rebecca has to deal with some shit that she doesn't want to deal with, you know? So I don't know how much of this moment is a reflection of like Rebecca's like true
silly
self
Rebecca
or
TM.
silly self, you know? And how much of it is a reaction to the fact that she is just so wildly uncomfortable with what she knows she needs to do. But I really did appreciate seeing her in this way. And I liked Ted's reaction to her, especially because
genuinely, are you okay?
Right, exactly. Like part of you thinks that he would be like, oh shit, this is the Rebecca I've been waiting for. Now we can like, you know, we're going to bebop and scat all over, you know, like do a whole routine. But he is just like, ma'am?
Yeah.
Are you? Oh, you want me to leave? Yes, I will leave right now.
Actually, that sounds good to me.
Right? I'm going to do something super weird to make your weird shit seem less weird, but I am absolutely going to leave.
That is really true. So he goes backwards out of there, and she is yelling at herself that she just needs to do the right thing, be a big girl, tidy up her mess, and she gets up and starts running after him, and Rupert comes in.
Surprise! And Rupert hate that.
Is just so incredibly petty here. He has been petty the whole time, but this is he isn't even veiling it. you know, it's just outright gross.
It's
so in
so hard to
summary,
watch.
First wants to know where Higgins is.
He's first rate or first class or whatever he calls them. Then he says maybe he'll take my offer now.
I don't even know if I trust that Rupert has an offer, so much as I feel like Rupert might just say shit like this.
Do you think that he's been offering?
Probably. I would bet that he would like to take anybody of quality away from Rebecca just because. But even like, I could also see him not having done that at all and just saying this because he likes to sort of imply that he has shit going on with people that she's involved with that she doesn't know about, because he likes to imply control, you know, that she doesn't have. So
I want to take a quick moment and just talk a little bit about Higgins, because something came up in the last episode and I was thinking about it a lot over the week. When Higgins leaves in the last episode and Rebecca tells him, you know, you could have told me, you know, I thought we were friends and all that.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and I had thought about it a lot every time I watched this series, because I go back and forth on it. I think I was thinking about Higgins as an employer of Rupert's, not Rebecca's. Right? You have to remember
employee?
Employee, sorry.
Okay.
Employee of Rupert's, because when they were married, Rebecca was not, you know, the owner of the team or involved in operations whatsoever. But Higgins would have been. He would have worked directly for Rupert. And she says to him, I thought we were friends. And that, you know, you took me out to lunch while Rupert was basically banging anybody he wanted to. And I know my first reaction to that was really just like, oh, what a piece of shit, Higgins. You know, that's fucking really, what the fuck? But I was thinking about it a little bit more, and like, do you think that Rebecca really was friends with him?
I mean, I don't see why not. Somebody's knocking on your class door. What's going on?
Muffler was flopping along the road as they drove by.
I don't like how much the word flop is coming up this episode. It's too many times.
Right?
Nope. But yeah, it's like the vibe I get about the Rebecca that has been with Rupert the past few years is somebody who was very alone. And him being a friend makes sense to me in terms of she doesn't seem to have anybody else in her life. She doesn't have any family of her own that she talks about, like her parents or brothers or sisters or anything like that. And a person like that who is so enmeshed in their spouse's world because he owns everything that they are involved in now, becoming friends with like one of his employees actually kind of makes sense for me.
Well, we know from Sassy that Rebecca chose to isolate herself away from her friends and families. And, you know, as she went more and more into Rupert's world. And that she would be in such a position of privilege and power over Higgins or anyone else, quite frankly. And it just made me really sad to think of her as thinking that this employee was really her friend when it's just the employee of her husband. But then holding that against the employee because she didn't have a better understanding of exactly what the relationship was. You know, it's just a weird thing. It's something I've been thinking about. It's not to like, you know, move blame around, but it just like, I was trying to imagine, you know, one of my bosses.
That's the thing. Is like,
lunch,
we don't know what the circumstances were with Higgins getting hired or the way, you know, like, because just picturing it as this guy already worked for Rupert as a basically secretary. She meets him and then becomes friends with him, and it feeling weird because he was already in this position. But we don't even know that's exactly how it went.
Well, we know that Rupert basically calls him a good dog. in this episode.
He says that he chewed on his pens like a puppy.
I think that there's supposed to be some implication there about what he thinks of Higgins and how Higgins would have done his dirty work like a good puppy. You know, just do what take my wife out to lunch, keep her distracted. You're a good boy. Go do that.
Okay.
You know? I don't know. I just been thinking. I don't know.
You're ascribing an intent that I did not get from that one line about him chewing on pens.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I think that what's going on is you really like Higgins. You're doing what you were accusing me of when I was defending Apple because it was Verizon that sucked.
I like everybody in the show a lot. There's no one on the show I don't like. Except maybe Rupert.
I think, it just seems like based on what the questions that you have asked me, especially in early episodes, you expected me to like Higgins more than I do. And I don't dislike Higgins by any means, but I don't have the affection for him that you clearly do. He's fine. But especially this episode with him playing the bass with his little, whatever it's called that I won't, Flemish painter.
It's a Van Dyke.
It is not, sir. No.
But not to be confused with a Van Buren.
I think that this is something that can happen, is that if you have rewatched something a million times, you grow to have a perspective on a character that when I'm going through it for the very first time and I'm in the beginning of this whole thing, I'm just not going to have that vibe with him yet. You know, I'm looking at him as somebody who was complicit and apparently, despite working for her this whole time, had never apologized or addressed that at all, even though he knew that she was on this warpath about it. And that she took it quite personally because she says in the first episode, I think at the very end, about how, well, you should be able to keep your mouth shut since you never told me shit, just as she's getting in the car.
When they're outside in the parking lot. Yeah. It's in the first or second episode.
So I've been sort of seeing him through that lens the entire time as somebody who's acting like he's got such a conscience all of a sudden. And I, knowing the position that she was in, just don't have that much sympathy because you could also just own up to the shit you've already done, sir, but you haven't done it. So he finally does, but only after blowing up on her. Yeah. And that I don't give him as much credit for, you know?
I think we're on the opposite end. You have much more sympathy for Rebecca than I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But all right. Okay. So Rupert
I just look,
up.
I have been known to be a bitch in a way that is unreasonable and not healthy, coming from a place that's understandable, but still just really silly in its way. So her whole I'm hurt, so I'm gonna begin to make it everybody's problem. I feel like I have been there, you know, and I have a lot of sympathy for that position, especially when you finally find yourself having any power after feeling like you didn't have any at all. The impulse to sort of abuse that really just makes a lot of sense to me. You know, and it's not to say that she didn't have power in general, because she obviously had a huge amount of privilege, but the force of who Rupert is so clear in every scene that he is in, how oppressive it would be to be around him all the time. Yeah. And she's just still not free of that. She was basically in what sounds like an abusive relationship.
I will say one of the things, if I was going to have a critique of the show, and I understand the show can't do everything for everybody, but one of the things I think, which is why what Sassy says and her inclusion in the series is so important and shouldn't be overshadowed, is how much Rebecca participated in her relationship with Rupert, how much she willfully walked into the situation that she was in and enjoyed all of the benefits of that. until it turned against her. And he ended up being as shitty to her as she clearly thought he would never be. He would be like that to everyone else, and then she would somehow be different and special. And because the show starts after their whole relationship has dissolved, we don't get to see that, you know? So Rebecca is very much in a sort of a victim role by the time the show starts, you know? And it's really easy to sympathize with her because we're seeing the aftermath of her whole shit imploding. But we don't get to see what she was like when she was participating in this horrible relationship, you know, and benefiting from it. So
yeah, I guess that's fair. And like saying like you walked up every step of that tower yourself is a fine thing to just like get the overall point across, but it doesn't give me any real information about what that looked like. So anything that we guess about it is going to be that. It's going to be a guess.
One of my favorite bits, and there's no like chance for the show to really explore it, but it's a really, really particular thing that Sassy and Rebecca both say. We know that they were married, her and Rupert, for 12 years, but it's only been 6 years since Rebecca disappeared from their lives. And I'm so curious, like, what happened, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if that would mean anything, but I feel like if I were in Rebecca's shoes, at the beginning of my marriage to Rupert, I would be really excited and happy and want to share it with everybody. And then when I started to realize that it wasn't what I thought it was, I would withdraw.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want to be around everybody. I wouldn't want people to see how he treats me, how he makes me feel. And I would isolate. But again, that's us just like trying to put on. Like, the show doesn't really give us that. But that's what I kind of imagine.
That makes sense because like the way that relationships tend to go is like the 7-year itch is like that thing that people talk about really flippantly, but that really is so true. It is wild. I got divorced in my 7th year of my marriage, and the 7th year of Owen and my relationship was like one of the toughest years we've ever had together. And it wasn't like mostly relationship stuff, but it was certainly part of it, you know. And it just unfortunately also happened to be the year that we were planning a wedding, which was great.
A little sprinkle stress on that. Just a little sprinkle.
But it is a real, like, I just think it's less about even the relationship so much as it is about the duration of time to understand how you are with a person.
Yeah.
And realizing and growing, you know? So it would make sense if like right around that time was when she starts to be like, oh God, you know?
Yeah.
Especially if they were dating for like a year before they got married. That is right around 7 years. But anyway, okay. So he tells her that he didn't want her to hear it from someone else. He wanted to tell her in person, Bex and I are having a baby. And she says, but you always said that. And he interrupts with, I thought we could be mature about this.
This is so hard to watch.
God, he's good.
He's so good.
Really want to drown him in the bathtub.
The way her fucking line delivery. So you're having a baby.
Yep.
What are you, a character from the fucking Bible?
I really thought we were going to get a Charlie Chaplin reference in there, which I maintain could have worked, but character from the Bible is so much better. And yeah, the whole like vibe here of like, oh, don't take this personally, except I definitely want you to take it personally. And that's why I'm here. And I'm really glad I did this in person because I love seeing your pain.
Your face. I wanted to see your face as you heard this news. Oh, I didn't want you to read it in the papers. I hate him so much.
And what kills me is that she has gotten this sort of icy exterior because she wants to protect herself by not giving him the response he's looking for. But it's not working. Like,
yeah, no.
You know, and I don't, there's no solution to that. Like, I don't think just breaking down in front of him works either. I do sort of want her to deck him and see what he would do.
Oh, just punch him right in the face?
Just do it. Like, because
That'd
he
be
can spin
satisfying as fuck.
anything, you know, he can, and I know that about him. He could weaponize that against her, but she still would have gotten to punch him in the face. And I feel like whatever he tries to do is going to be worth it to have gotten to do that. You know, there are just times where violence is absolutely the answer, and this is one of them.
Her face as he's telling her this, like just the acting, it's she doesn't want to be destroyed by this. You know, she is so clear that this shouldn't matter, but it does matter, and we don't even know if she wanted to have. You know, this clearly is a conversation that they had. He clearly told her, "I don't want to have children," so we know it came up, but we don't know how serious this was for her. You know, like personally, me, I didn't want to have kids, so like if you know, finding out somebody else fucking had kids, fuck do I care?
Right.
But clearly, it means something for her in this moment, and the way that she has to stand there and let him tell this news to her and try to like keep her shit together.
People change. Now I do want a child. I suppose I just didn't want one with before.
Oh my God, that fucking line.
Really. It's so small. And he feels like he's got the upper hand, and she clearly feels that he has the upper hand. But watching from the outside, he is small. And it's pitiful. And that's why he did this here, where nobody else could see, because he really does know.
Yeah.
And he's just not going to let anybody know about it if he can help it.
He's here for the pain. He's here for the pain of it. That is some fucking, I mean, like, I can be really petty, but this is like a level, it's cartoonish almost, you know? But
we're so glad I got to tell you this in person. He punches her on the shoulder as he walks out.
Fuck. Yeah.
That's when I really wanted her to deck him and just be like, what? I'm just punching you affectionately. I'm sorry that your face hit my hand so hard.
She should have just tackled him from the behind. And then there's they continue to use music so effectively in this series. There's like a needle drop, and you're not sure what she's going to do, right? When he leaves, she's standing there drenched in pain and humiliation. And I don't know, what did you think was happening next from this moment?
I was pretty sure that she was going to tell the truth.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really sure how it was going to feel in terms of like the motivation. And it's still kind of interesting because, like we've said, every other encounter with him that has been awful has resulted in her doubling down. And I don't have a problem at all with this being the thing that sort of pushes her to be like, you know what? But I am sort of curious about it being so motivating in the way that it is. What it feels like is her realizing, because there comes a point where maybe you can just say he won. It's over. He won. He's having a baby. He's marrying a 26-year-old. And he won. And what am I even trying to do? And why do I care how he feels when there's somebody that I like named Keely who is going to judge me for not doing the right thing, but I'm more concerned with this fucking joke? Like, you know? And she watched him get so humiliated by Ted that I think it really made her feel like it's a kind of game where you can have points and eventually somebody can cash out and leave. But, and it felt so good, that scene. So she started to be like, oh yeah, I'm in this game. I'm, you know, this is like the high that I'm getting here is winning. And then this moment is sort of a reminder that like, it's not ever really over. It won't be. It's just going to be this repeatedly.
Over and over and over again.
And he's so vicious that you're not going to win. If all you're trying to do is hurt him, he will win because he's better at finding the ways to hurt you in conversation in just simple ways. And what, like, you know, it's just, they're the only thing to do with somebody like this is to not give them the satisfaction of even being a factor anymore. When he comes in, just be like, oh, I really appreciate you being here and needing to tell me something, but can we walk and talk because I don't have time for this? And just not entertaining this moment alone in your office, not staying at the pub because you don't want him to win so that he can continue to humiliate you in front of everybody. Like, she came out on top in the end, thanks to Ted, not thanks to anything she herself did. And it wasn't going like, I don't want to let him win. He won. He's winning. It's just, you're not the kind of person that can win at this game because you aren't a piece of shit.
That's the thing right there. This is a moment of her having to make a choice about what kind of person she really is going to be. Right? And a realization in this moment that, like you said, she can never beat him at this particular game.
Yeah.
Because she's not a piece of shit. She will never win at this game. And so what kind of person does she want to be? And this moment where he hurts her and humiliates her in such a way that's so personal. And also, like, not to get into a whole long thing, but like, I think we're supposed to understand that, you know, whatever happened in their marriage with children or not having children, there's sort of an idea that Rebecca is a woman, a more mature woman, right? So having children is probably maybe off the table or whatever, right?
Right.
So you can't get that back.
Yeah.
You know? And it's a real, like, what they would call like a come to Jesus moment. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, is this who I want to be? Is this is the guy? This is who I want to let dictate the kind of person I'm going to be.
This is what's so frustrating about, like, the fact that billionaires and millionaires of the almost billionaire variety exist, is that those people got there by being the kind of horrible that good people just can't bear to be. So you will never beat them in that arena because you don't have the soulless quality required to do it, you know? Like, I just keep thinking about, because like recently with all this shit about student loans and stuff, there's been a lot of outing public figures for PPP loans that they got and that were forgiven, even though they make millions already and have clearly no need, and just took advantage because some accountant was like, you know what, you could get this. And it made me think of how Cam tried to convince me to get a PPP loan for Unspoiled. And I just felt like I didn't have the right to try to do that. My business wasn't hurting because of the pandemic. It is now, but it wasn't. And it felt like I was going to be taking advantage of a system that was not intended for, you know.
Oh, you had that conscience that Brett Favre didn't have.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I see.
And it sucks because, like, probably if I had done it, nothing bad would have happened because of it.
Yeah.
Probably nothing. But then, you know, there was like one podcaster, or maybe it was like I think it was a podcaster who was like, kind of said some fucked up things online about money. And then they got outed for getting a PPP loan. Cause that shit's like public record.
Yeah, it is.
And it really kind of, for me, was like, see, that's exactly what I was afraid of, that I would say something and a person would like go dig this shit up on me and begin to use it again. So I'm like worried about looking bad. I have shame surrounding it. But people like this don't have that. So they will always come out on top because they don't care and they don't have that shame. And I'm so jealous of that sometimes. And I'm grateful that I don't, because I know that that just means that I am at least a person with a conscience who has some compassion. But it's really convenient. It's really annoying. Yeah. It's like when I used to play various board games with Brendan, who was cutthroat. And I would see a play that I could do. Oh my God, you do not even know. Didn't know. He was a different person.
Really?
It was wild. He was mean, like just mean. And I would be playing versus him, and I would see a move I could make that was like just brutal. And I would think, oh, that's just too mean. I can't do it. And I would literally not take the move. And next turn, he would take the move because he had the fucking guts to do it. And I didn't want to make him feel bad. So I didn't. And every time I was like, why didn't I just do it? Oh my God, I lost again. But I don't have it. I don't have it in me that way, you know? Anyway, so she has this stricken look as she goes in her 6-inch stilettos down a flight of stairs that I will just, girl, that is its own workout. That is its own like level on cross training. And walks into the office and tells Ted, I have something I need to tell you. And closes the door and says, I'm a fucking bitch.
Yeah, she walks right through the locker room. Guys got like no pants on, their junk's flinging around. And again, she's so rarely down there. Everybody's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And yeah, she just fucking comes. Ted is like, when she says, I have something to tell you, he's like, oh, deja vu. Like jokey. And she's like, I'm a fucking bitch. She's, okay, that's new.
Yeah. Yeah. And when she's telling him what she did, there's not a readable expression on his face.
He's just taking it all in.
Yeah. And there's definitely like eventually a hurt look. But once he says divorce is hard, I was like, oh, I bet that hurt is like, of course he's hurt by what she has done and been lying about. But I think he is like hearing echoes of maybe what his worst self sort of wanted to do. Because, you know, it's just when you are hurting and there is a person directly connected to that, even if you care about them and don't actually want ill things to happen to them, there is always a little part of you that's sort of like, it would be cool though, if just for a second I could like get one over on them a little bit. And it may not last in your brain, you know, it may go away very quickly. Like I didn't really have that for more than like a week with Brendan. And then after that, it was just straight up, I hope things work out for him because it had just gone so wrong, you know. But even so, even when you know it's not fair, you can feel that way. And he had a very amicable split with his wife, but he still had like a panic attack over it. He still struggles with it, clearly.
Yeah.
So
were you so when I'll ask you first. He forgives her like immediately. Did you think that really made sense? Did you expect him to be angrier initially and then like come around to it, or did it feel right?
I believed it.
Yeah.
Because the way she's talking is somebody who really does get how much they fucked up.
Yeah. That's
sometimes a person will come and tell you something and it's like they're telling you because they were about to get caught anyway, or somebody else caught them, you know, which is sort of what happens here with Keely, but like she still sat on it for quite a while. So it feels still very much like she had her moment to decide, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes when somebody apologizes, it feels really rote. But here she is putting it all out there, confessing to each individual thing and talking about her attitude throughout it all.
Yep.
And just how much these people that were actually good folks who did not deserve any of it and were doing their best, how much she just didn't care. Yeah. And I feel like it just felt so self-aware that forgiving her makes sense because I don't see her making this kind of mistake again.
That's how I felt. I felt like his his reaction to her apology made sense because that's how good and real her apology felt. Like, that's how sincere it was when she's talking to him about what she did and taking response. It's funny, too, because at the beginning of the episode, when they're in the locker room and they're talking about Higgins not working there anymore, she doesn't give Ted the context for why he's not working there anymore. And Ted is being just very, like, optimistic, like, oh, I'm sure you'll come back together. And she says, no, I don't think Higgins, like, likes me very much anymore or something. And he's like, oh, that's thinking, you know, whatever.
I hate that phrase.
But I actually do, too.
That's some AA shit.
Listen.
There's nothing inherently wrong with AA, but I just got some baggage with that kind of
stuff.
Stay
out of your head. It's a bad neighborhood.
Oh, my God.
But the way
like, you're turning yourself into the enemy, which, like, I get to a point that's true, but there is something about that I feel like is counterproductive, you know, like
it makes me mad how true it is and how also bullshit it is at the same time.
Yeah,
like, I find it very, very frustrating. But yeah, she's so earnest and sincere, and I mean, when she's crying the whole time she's apologizing to him, like, if it hadn't been for her performance in this moment, I would have called bullshit on his accepting her apology so easily. But when I watched the scene, I was 100% like, oh God, yeah, she means it, you know. Of course he's going to accept her apology. And then given the added context of what he's been through in his divorce and, like, his ability to be compassionate and sort of understand what that is like, it was weird because when I first watched it, I felt guilty afterwards for buying it. I was like, oh, it's fucking show. You know, this is bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you think, like, all the season has been leading up to this moment. You're kind of primed for it to be like a big explosion and there'd be fireworks and it'd take like 2 or 3 episodes to resolve. But it's all just, like, done. Like, right there.
Yeah.
I was surprised how much I bought it.
I love that Keely just being like, I was invited to her birthday party and we just, like, didn't talk for a week and then we made up and it was fine. And that's, like, basically what happens here, except fast forwarded quite a bit with no shit in the lockers, thankfully.
Well, you haven't seen season
metaphorical
2.
Shit. You know, metaphorically. So yeah, he comes around and, like, says we're okay, and like holds his hand up to shake her hand, and she hugs him in a really nice moment and is just, like, really crying.
So relieved and so grateful too, right? When he says we're good, like, her face is just like, thank you. You know, it's really good. It's so good. I
love when you've got a little love in your heart and you care about a person. There's nothing you can't get through together. And she backs up and says, we're not talking about me, are we? And I was like, wait, we're not? And then I realized it was about Higgins, and I was like, oh, right. So apparently he's figuring out what probably happened there. So then he goes and we get a little bit of the practice, training. And we have this, like, this is what, when I did sports, this
I always forget that you
run down,
sports.
Touch the line, turn around, run back, touch the line was my number one most hated exercise.
It looks awful. I don't know why anybody would sign up for that.
Absolute hell. It, like, kills your ankles and your knees because you're, like, putting so much pressure to change direction. And it, like, a lot of practice I could just sort of float through and do because I was expected to be here. That is an exercise in which you cannot fake it. You have to do it and really put your body through some shit. There is no half-assing that exercise. The worst. So we get to really see Roy.
Yeah. This is
struggling and just yelling fuck
why
over
I've never
and
played
over.
Poor Roy. His body, He's trying so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And his body just, it's not happening. Again, it's another thing, like talking about age, right? We're talking about Rebecca and having kids and like Roy. Like there are something, you can do a lot of things. You can work out, you can fucking eat right, you can diet, but certain things you cannot fake.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot fake youth.
Yep.
You just can't.
Yep.
This is no way around it. You can, whatever makeup and surgeries and what all the shit that you do,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot fake youth. And he is trying so hard. And this is when we get the coaches on his sideline.
So he's trying to tell a joke. What does a British owl say? And Beard just keeps stepping away as he attempts to tell it. Nate comes up to work on something, and he comes toward Nate, and Nate runs like he's a magnet being pushed away, like there's just a required 20 feet of distance, and he's about to violate parole by being too close or something. And he tries to act like it's not bothering him, but it's clearly kind of like throwing him that they are digging in this hard on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, Roy is not keeping up. And this whole, I just had this like conversation with my mom because she went and got like it wasn't the Botox brand, but it was something like Botox. And there is a form that you have to sign when you get these done. I know, because that's what I get at the neurologist, that says basically we may hit the wrong spot and your whole face will fall. And it will stay that way for a couple months, and you just have to sort of wait for it to go. So if we do that, that's kind of on you. It's a risk you're taking, and you know you're taking it, and that's a possibility, and we are not going to be held responsible for it.
I can't believe there's just a waiver that you have to sign that absolves them of responsibility for fucking up half your face.
It's just like, it's such a chancy thing. It's really difficult, like, and things can like move around a little bit within your face as well, you know? So she got it done, and her eyelid fell, like,
oh no,
in a way that was really bothering her. She said that she felt like she just had to like hold her lid up with her hand in order to see clearly. Which, when my twitch was, before I started getting it treated, this eye would almost entirely close. So I know that feeling. And it's the worst. And she like was so upset because she went to the clinic where she had it done, and they wouldn't do anything for her. And I was like, Mom, I know they give you that form. They
were just like, this is just what could happen.
Yeah, they were like, we can't give you more because there's like a limit in your system of what can your body can handle. And if we inject you again, it could just make it worse. So you just have to wait for it to dissolve in your system and go away.
Oh.
So she was really mad, but I was like, that's how this works though, you know? And finally, by the end of the conversation, it just became, she is struggling so bad with aging and just realizing maybe this is like a sign that I have to stop trying to hold on to something that's just gone, because I am really, she's, you know, trying to do these little things, wanting a big difference that you can only get if you get a full facelift, if you pay $15,000 and do the whole thing. And I got some stuff done right before the wedding, and let me tell you guys, that shit did not go well for me, and I would not recommend it. So I just really, especially getting to I'll be 38 next Saturday.
Oh my God, you're not even fucking 40 yet.
Nope.
I always forget that.
That's why we're planning our thing, Rashawn. We got to talk about that. We got to figure this out, by the way. We got to start a little like joint bank account where we each deposit like $25.
I know. The only thing that makes me sad about that is I'll be 50.
But
it's taking the shine off of the excitement of planning it, because I'll be 50 and there's no excitement
Rashawn,
there.
Look, I am not going. I'm saying this to you, and I want you to hear that I'm saying this with total sincerity and not just trying to like gas you up. You look better than me who is 10 years younger.
Shut up.
You do, though. You do.
I
So
only look good for I look good for my age.
No.
I have that like that
Ma'am, no.
asterisk next to it where people are like, oh, you look good for your age.
If people saw us standing together, there is no way anybody would guess you were 10 years older than me. It would not happen. It would not happen. First of all, being fat just causes a whole thing with my jawline that ages me immediately. Secondly, I am white, which is no help at all.
That is not your fault. You can't be held responsible.
I can't be held responsible for any of this, but it is what it is, and I have to acknowledge it. So I'm just saying, I frankly just feel no sympathy for you. Because I know if we were out and we like said, oh, we're celebrating each of our birthdays, they would think that we were the same age.
But see, the thing about getting older is like you will hit a wall. Like my wall is coming. Like, all right.
Your wall is coming and that's fine. But you're not there yet.
It could happen by the time I'm 50.
No.
By the time we have this vacation thing, I could hit my wall and all this will be down here.
56.
Like my whole face
I give you till 56.
56.
That seems to be the part where women start to really have a hard time.
56?
Is like right around there. Yeah. When you're like just before 60, right, so it starts to be like much more obvious. But
just about 10 years left to ride this shit to the wheels fall
off. I've got till 48. Right around there.
Well, no, your father's Colombian though. Those genes might surprise you. They might just like show up.
I'm going to tell you something
Jazz
right
hands.
now. I will tell you this right now. I remember very distinctly being a kid and looking at photos of my abuela and this chipmunk cheek thing that she had going on and being like, ooh, hope I don't get that.
Oh, no.
Kiddos, it looks like you could pop my cheek right off my head sometimes. That is a ventriloquist on me cheek going on. The line is just going to get deeper. It is just going to get a full furrow right here. The aging process was not kind to most of my family.
I went to see my mom the other night before she went out of town, and I noticed for the first time that like you can see around her neck like how much she's aged. Like my mom is 76, 74, 76, I think. And all of this is like, it's like a 76-year-old's neck, you know? And it was the first time being like, look at my mom. Oh.
Yeah. That's the weirdest part, I think, is like seeing your own age. It hits you, and it like, certainly there are moments, but when you see your parents and loved ones aging, that's the part that starts to be like, oh God, it's really happening. It's not just happening to me. It's all of us.
Yeah.
My mom, when she came to the wedding, there were more than one moment where I was like, God.
Yeah,
wow.
right.
You know, like, yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Exactly what you mean.
Yep.
All right.
We have like our 20 minutes per episode where we just lament aging, and that's just apparently going to be a fucking like segment that we have now. So I probably should come up with a sound effect for that.
It's part of our brand.
So, yeah, Roy is just swearing, and finally Ted goes to talk to him. Sits right next to him. Roy is deeply uncomfortable. Ted is trying to tell him.
You could have sat anywhere. He's me on SEPTA every day. Like there's a million seats. Why are you right here? I had to get up today and move to an empty seat because somebody sat down next to me and there was an empty seat right there. So I got up and moved.
Have you ever had anybody do that in a movie theater? I haven't had that, but I had a friend who it was a completely empty theater and the guy came and sat directly next to him.
People are psychopaths.
And he genuinely was like, I just didn't know what to do. There's nobody else. How do you just get up and like move away from the person without feeling like a fucking monster? But they are the monster that started this. Like, yeah, don't know what I would do. It's genuinely
it's never
like
happened
suspect.
To me. But I'm really curious if I would have the balls to get up and move. I'd like to think I would, but I don't know. In those kind of moments, it can go either way.
I would.
Like, I don't want to hurt people's feelings. You would say something?
Yeah, because that's how I tend
shit.
to deal with, like, if he was a service worker, forget it. Could not say a word. Never happening. If it's just another person, I would definitely be like,
different rules.
Are you doing this? Really? Because I've said that to people before when they've been like just clearly doing some shit and just been like, I know that you're doing that, right? And oftentimes all it takes is acknowledging it and a person will back off immediately,
That's true. Yeah.
But sometimes you'll get a person who will just be like, oh, sorry. And it's nothing to them. And I don't know how to cope with that.
And then they don't even move. They're like, you said your thing, and then they don't care. And then you're like, well, I'm all out of plays. Those are all my cards.
Because I deal in people who have shame. And if you don't have that for me to weaponize against you, I can't. I have no weapons left. I don't know.
They might as well be Batman.
Exactly.
How do you fight that?
Like,
people walking around with no shame.
They're ahead. They're just ahead.
What must that be like?
I know.
Fuck. I bet you sleep good as fuck at night. Right?
Like
sound as shit. Like you don't fucking no stress dreams, no anxiety dreams. Just like a solid 8 hours. Wow.
All
right.
Okay. So he goes and tries to break the news to Roy, and Roy freaks out and says that you can go fuck yourself. You said you had my back. And he just gets up and leaves. And
yeah, he's very emotional.
Yeah. And Ted just sinks into one of the seats like, oh boy, okay. So then we go to Rebecca, who has come to Higgins' house to apologize to him and finds him with this fucking facial hair playing the bass, really getting into it.
It's a fucking full bass, like he's in like band at high school. Mm-hmm. Like who has one of these in their home?
I like to imagine that he bought this. Not that it's a hobby that he was meaning to get around to again and it was somewhere in the attic. No, he quit his job and was like, I have always wanted to learn how to play bass. And he
and then went out and got
for it. Yep. That's what I like to imagine. He just seized the moment. So she taps on the window, scares the shit out of him. And then when we see them next, he is sitting there just plucking one string on the bass, staring at her. And I really enjoy her talking about his facial hair, him explaining the name of it, and her being like, does your wife like it? And he says she hates it with a white hot fury. And Rebecca laughs, which we have not seen her laugh with Higgins like ever. A white hot intensity. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's how it's written.
One of the things she says when she sits down, she goes, well, there are a lot of surprises here, which is such a fantastic line. It's so good.
Yeah. Yep. So he's sort of sitting back in his chair, looking like he's expecting her to beg him to come back without having given an inch on anything else. And when she says, I came clean to Ted and told him everything, he sits up straight.
Yeah.
In that, I didn't know this was about to be a real conversation. Yeah, I thought you were just going to waste my damn time.
Yeah.
And
says, how did that go?
You know what that little shit did? He forgave me. Fucking asshole. I know.
It's so good. Like, and also them having this sort of really quick rapport, like this really fast, like back and forth, considering how fractured the relationship has been.
Mm-hmm.
This is a moment that makes me think, oh, maybe they really
were friends.
Maybe they did have a friendship because this seems like a really like natural back and forth, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That we weren't really getting before between the two of them.
Yeah, definitely. And she says, I wanted to apologize for treating you so poorly and forcing you to go along with my silly and childish scheme. And he says, thank you. And she says, look, I lost my way for a minute, but I'm on the road back. And I love when he says, I can tell it suits you. And she says, unlike that beard. And they have a little moment pointing at each other. I kind of wanted him to come back to work and still have it and just be like, you wanted me back and you never made any stipulations. So I'm going to keep playing the bass on my downtime, and I need to have that aesthetic going for me. So this is the compromise that we are reaching.
Yeah. I know that she couldn't be in this moment, but like low key, I wanted his wife to be around just because we know that his family like all despises Rebecca.
Yeah,
I just wanted them all to be like with their arms crossed. But I understand that we weren't going to get that.
It's like Ebenezer Scrooge coming over to Bob Cratchit's house.
Basically, like, and the whole family is like, this motherfucker.
So we cut then to Keeley. And Roy has come over with his niece, who she has put on to listening to Led Zeppelin while they have like a conversation. And I love when she says, I've never had a child in my house before. And he says, what about Jamie? And I was like, that is actually a really good line.
Very, very good. And then she says something about like hoping that Phoebe doesn't find her vibrator, which like is not like a top concern of mine, but also as someone who doesn't entertain children ever. Same. I always feel like low key like, oh, there's a kid in my house. I'm not really prepared for this, you know?
All I ever think, because like Owen has a family member who's got a couple of young kids and they're older now, that this probably wouldn't be like the same issue anymore. But our carpet is so gross from the cats just repeatedly vomiting on it and us just cleaning it up, but not like cleaning.
All right, just getting it up off the floor.
Exactly. You know, and then there's like the vacuuming that happens, but it's not like we're shampooing our carpet.
Right.
And kids like to play on the floor, and all I could ever think was just, no, I can't let them do that. I can't let them. If they come over, we have to get a blanket and spread it out, and they can play on that, but there's no way. It's not sanitary. So anyway, she starts to make a little small talk about how they have new teeth that push out their old teeth. And then he starts to talk about being benched, and she gets very excited that they're going to have a real conversation.
This is so great. Her willingness to be like, okay, well, he's not ready to talk about it, so I'm just gonna like make like chit chat or whatever, it's fine. And then the way she lights up because that's what it really is like. I mean, I don't know if you guys have met any like men, but sometimes they're not ready to like have a real conversation, and you can't always force it. But then when they are, you're like, oh shit, we're doing this. Word, all right. And she gives him a little fluffy pillow to hold on to.
I loved this. I was really hoping that he would actually do it, but he just like puts it aside. Yeah. And I was like, you're really underestimating the potential effect of that pillow, sir, because that thing could help. It really could. Owen got me a big fluffy, it's called, the brand is a Squishmallow. And it's one of those stuffies that's made out of that super soft material, and you squeeze it and it just pops right back up again. You know the one?
Is that what that means? I see that in memes all the time.
Really? I haven't seen them in a meme.
I follow a lot of weird pages.
Okay, well, I'll just leave that there.
But I see Squishmallow all the time. I didn't know what it meant.
It is... I want one for Christmas time. I want like, and it has to be a big one. Like, they have like other ones that I got tricked online almost into buying, and then I found out those were like 10 inches. No, they have a 14-inch, and it's like the size of a regular pillow. And wrapping your arms around it is the most comforting thing. There is just something about how you can squeeze it as much as you want, and it just puffs right back out again. You never can compress it. It doesn't happen. So it's so cozy, and I want a Christmas one. I want like a Valentine's Day one. I want a year round to have a Squishmallow available for comfort, because it's just the best. So
duly noted.
And then when he starts to lament that he doesn't know who he is without soccer, she says,
so
I think men who feel sorry for themselves are so sexy. Seriously, I do. If you start telling me how hard it is playing a game for a living, I think I might come.
She's
And
a
while
fucking hero.
I did like that she's like kind of giving him a hard time a little bit, it is his whole identity. And I really wanted her to like hear that a little bit more before starting to like rag on him. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we also only have so much time. So I get that.
Yeah.
And eventually when he says like, I have always been the best player. This is always what I am. What happens when I don't have this anymore? Who am I even? She has his niece come over and asks her to close her eyes and describe her Uncle Roy. And she names a bunch of things about him that
his
are
beard
not
is
anything to do with football.
He curses a lot. He's very funny, and she loves him a lot. And then he's like, the fuck does she know? She's 6.
I love that. He says that shit right in front of her. And she's unmoved, too. His niece doesn't take it in any way. She's just rolls her eyes and is just like, oh, boy, this guy.
This fucking guy.
This little girl is so cute, too. She's got this, like, tutu and, like, it's a whole, like, sort of ballerina look going on with her hair and 2 knobs. But then in front, she has these 2, like, clips that have puffballs. There's like a real like alien ballerina kind of thing going on here. I like it. And I
see what you mean. Yeah, those are cute.
When she says that his beard is scratchy, he sort of touches his face like, wait, really? Yeah, Which there's something about that I do appreciate.
Like, no, my beard is fine. What is the fuck is she talking about?
So we then go to Ted, who has come to the pub. And Beard has bought him a bunch of beards. Beard has bought him a bunch of beers. That was so hard. Oh my God.
Yeah, Beard is like, I know you had a rough time giving Roy that bad news. So I wanted to like have some beers ready for you. And we find out that there was no bad news given because we saw Roy flip out and walk away, and Ted did not follow him to tell him the bad news.
Yep.
And Beard is not pleased.
What I found so interesting here is Beard does not take this well. And he says something about it wouldn't just humiliate him. This is Ted. It would affect his livelihood. And Beard sort of blinks in this way that I thought Ted's line of thinking here was going to sway him a little because of the expression he was making. But I think what it turns out to be is like, you don't think everybody's livelihood is going to be affected by the fact that we're going to fucking lose?
Yep,
like,
exactly.
You can't be acting like that's the thing when it's about everybody.
Yep.
And when he says it's not all about winning, that's not how we measure success, Beard smashes his hand on the table and yells, "Damn it, it is," to the point that everybody in the pub stops and looks at him.
Yep. Damn it, it is.
Yep.
And he tells Ted that if he is going to sort of skirt his coach's duty because he doesn't want to hurt somebody's feelings, that, you know, he doesn't even know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And he's basically just accusing Ted of being like, hey, you like this guy so much, you don't want to do your job.
Yep.
And, you know, the way the episode ends up resolving, it turns out that Roy ends up making the decision that I think we're supposed to think that Ted wants Roy to make, right? Ted doesn't want to pull Roy. He wants Roy to say, hey, I need to step back because I'm not, you know, what I used to be. But in this moment, I have to admit that I was like, oh, yeah, Beard's right. Like, Ted, do your fucking job. What are you doing here?
Yep, agreed. Because, like, it's hard for me, you know, I definitely can understand intellectually the aging process and the fact that, like, Roy is on a down, but he had such a good game, like, last episode or the episode before, that I still sort of have it in my head that he can make a comeback. It's hard for me to just accept he's really sliding completely.
Right.
when we have seen him go back and forth, you know. But the way that he put this here, I was sort of like, oh, okay, so we're really gonna like just take it for sure that he isn't going to be able to like pick it back up again at this point.
And also, like, with the way the episode ends, we see Roy being like sort of second team, right? So he's not like not ever playing the sport anymore, but he's can't be the star. He can't be what the whole team is built around because he just doesn't have that anymore. And I love when he points to May and she's like, "A fucking men."
Yep. He says, "Right, May," and she's right there on cue.
Yeah.
And then if you're
Meanwhile,
that selfish, I don't want to be the one to sit with you. And he gets up to walk out, and the two dudes, I forgot about this. The three of them that have always been giving
Jeremy,
Ted a
Paul,
hard time.
And Baz, Paul comes over and is like, "Is that your girl playing?" Or one of the other ones come over and they're like, "Oh, that's fucking brutal." And then Paul is the one that's like, "You're a beautiful man."
He says, like, Beard says something like, "She's just playing her game," but it's very clear he is just burying his head at that moment. He knows what's going on. And so, he's walking by. She grabs his like shirt sleeve and says, "That was the sexiest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life." And he says, "Get your things." And then to the dude, "She's been toying with you. Checkmate." And moves the piece and then walks out with her in a very boss moment. He's
like, "Checkmate, mate."
I forgot he says that.
So Ted apparently finishes all the beers that are on the table.
Yeah, he gets quite drunk.
Because he is wobbly as he's leaving. And we have a callback where he looks the wrong way, checking for traffic.
Yeah, I did not. I had a moment here of just like, oh, God.
Yeah. That's 100% the way I would die if I ever went to Europe. I
always look both ways. I just have that built into me. Both ways. I have not grown up on a lot of one-way streets. So a car only coming from one direction has never really been something that I've like, you know.
Do I look both ways? No, there's a lot of one-way streets up this way. I don't think I look both ways every time. There's like all one-way streets in Philly.
Oh, man, it really is, though.
But he's about to cross, and it's Roy who
saves his life.
Basically, keeps him from walking into fucking traffic.
And then we cut to him digging peanut butter out of a jar.
He asks him,
as he has mentioned, and offers some to Roy, who is like,
"You have a nut allergy."
I have a finger allergy. It's like, you've got your finger in your mouth and you're clearly digging in there again with that same finger, which precedent says it has happened this entire time. So I am uninterested, sir. No. But it felt like I've had too many beers behavior. It was extremely on point for me, you know?
I love when he's like, "Can I get you anything? I have some red wine. I have 2-day-old pasta water." And then they have this whole back and forth about tea, which I think is just hysterical. This running joke never fucking fails to land for me, where he makes Roy tea, and then he's just like, "All right, you can tell me. It's a prank, right? You guys all know this is garbage. It's terrible. It's pigeon sweat." And Roy is like, "No, I love it. It's delicious."
It's so weird to me that people act like coffee isn't the same bullshit. Coffee, you take a bunch of beans, you burn them, and dry them out, grind them up, pour water on them, and just let it sit. And then you fucking drink it and you're like, tea is gross. This is the thing. What, are you kidding me? You have no upper hands. None at all.
I love how committed Ted is to like not enjoying tea. Because there's like some really easy fixes, right? Put some cream in there, put some sugar in there, bam. It's a lovely beverage. But he is so committed to just being like, "This is terrible and I don't want any parts of it." And then we have, again, because he's drunk, a whole thing about Carlton from the Fresh Prince.
Which we do not have time to get into. We have 5 minutes left.
Shit.
But it ends
right.
with the I love it. I love the tea. And I was like, sure you do, bud. And then the next day, he brings somehow this man drunk wakes up to make biscuits anyway. You fucking lunatic. And he brings extras, which he says initially that he brought for Higgins, then says no, it was for this little girl's birthday, and then
takes
ends
it back
with I'm joking, it wasn't. But then when Higgins opens it,
it's clearly
and they're for Trent Crim's daughter, I think.
Her third birthday is what he says.
Which the idea that he would get something for Trent Crim, that's amazing.
He's like, yeah, I told her, but she'll forget. She's 3. She'll never remember that I
She'll
even
bounce right back.
These.
Which honestly, when you're 3 and somebody has been promising you a thing and they don't give it to you, you don't bounce back.
You don't
That's
bounce
a thing
back.
that you remember forever.
For the rest of your life. Yeah. Way to go, Ted.
But yeah, he opens them and there's icing. Yeah, and Rebecca says maybe he thinks you're playful and mysterious, which I appreciate this jokiness that she's having with him. So last scene is everybody in the locker room except Roy. Ted's starting to kind of panic and be like, all right, I guess he just decided he wasn't going to try and do this anymore. And as he's beginning to give his little pep talk, Roy comes in and it's a big moment with everybody kind of looking at him.
Yeah.
And he asks if he can say something, and he puts one of those little singlets on. I don't even know what they're called. I feel like they had this, it's like a vest, you know? And he says, second team is going to kick the first team's ass. And everybody just cheers and rolls with it. There's no like moment about it. It's just this. They all take off, and he sits while the locker room empties out and just watches as everybody moves on, having a bit of a like, it's an end of an era for me, and I just need to like savor this for a second because it's going to be different.
It's going to be different.
You know,
going from like top dog, you know, the guy on the team that's won, you know, the trophies and whatever, to being a completely different role. And we have a nice moment with Nate and Beard. Nate apologizes for like ignoring Ted and says he felt terrible about it. He had a nightmare. And Ted is like, just make sure you apologize in my dreams, so we're good on that end too.
That's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's pretty much it. God, it's just, I can't believe how much we have to talk about every episode. Like, I can't believe we're up against time every time.
Every time. And I wanted to like, find out what you think about the next episode, because it's the series finale. But there's no time for that. So you guys have to just join us next week.
Rashawn and I just ended the Crowdcast, but we really wanted to talk for just a few more minutes. So I hope everybody who came live to the Crowdcast can forgive us that we didn't start a whole new session, because we're only going to keep talking for like another 5 or 10 minutes, maybe. But we hope that you will appreciate this little bonus once you actually listen to the episode, once it's loaded. You asked me like how I felt about the episode overall and the series overall.
Well, no, we're going into the season 1 finale next week. So, like, what are you hoping to see? What do you think you'll see? That kind of stuff. I
genuinely don't know, because the season finale I would have thought was the episode where Rebecca confesses.
Right.
So the fact that it's the episode before, I really can't say. Like, I feel like maybe we could get something with Jamie Tart here, because Jamie's holding some animosity toward Ted still.
Well, we know they told us in this episode who they're playing next. I don't know if you remember hearing that.
That's right. He says Man City.
Yes, he does.
That's right. I forgot he says that when he fucking punches her on the shoulder. I just cannot express how deeply I hate that man.
Listen. Fucking... what's his name? Anthony Stewart Head. Anthony Stewart Head, yeah. Yeah, you're right. It sounds weird if you don't include the middle name. He is just so good at this type of character. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
because you just want to punch him every time he shows up.
100%.
You really, really fucking do.
So I wanted to acknowledge that. And I also have gone a while now without greeting new patrons on this feed. It's been, do you remember the last time I did it?
I don't think we've done it maybe since the first or second episode, because we're
like,
always out of time.
Yeah. So I wanted to also take time to do that. So real quick, we have to, of course. Hey! So we've got Stephanie Rattigan, Mhan00. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say Mhanu or if it's just Mhan00. Deanna Webster, Nina, Brianna Posanka, Rose, Kylan Anderson, Tracy Cataldo, Thomas Watkins, Tina, Sarah, Lacey Bukta, Megrim, Liz, Jacob, Spencer, Avery, Miko, Angela, Prarana Kulkarni, I hope I'm saying that right, Megan Preston, William B., Tyler Kallmeyer, Cindy Smith. Yay! Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. And if you want to sign up and become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/unspoiled. And yeah, I hope that you're all enjoying the coverage. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
My hands won't be tied down, and I will not lay them down, 'cause I can finally see the truth. So simple but so clear, accepting an ocean's depths were out of reach for me and you. If you're coming up for air, breathing in, you know I'll be there when you first begin. And when everybody's telling us we have no time, we'll prove them wrong again.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.